Hi guys, it's Erica here. Today I'm going to show you how we sheet mulched our front yard. We did a super easy, cheap way of doing it. I know there's some more complicated ways of sheet mulching, but we wanted to go with the simple route. We cut out our entire lawn with a sod cutter, and so we're going to be sheet mulching over all of it. So the very first step is to lay down your cardboard. Now you can lay the cardboard on top of your grass. You don't have to cut the grass out first, but we decided to cut the grass out. So what the cardboard is going to do is it's going to help suppress the weeds that you have in the ground. Because I'm sure if you had a lawn, you've had weeds. Even the lawn can try to pop through. So that's what the cardboard is doing. It's a protection layer from things that are already in the ground. Now, as you can see, I'm overlapping a lot the adjacent cardboard. I try to go for about 6 inches of overlap. The reason being is that weeds are really great at finding sunlight, and if you do the 6 inches of overlap, it's going to keep the weeds from weaving through the cardboard, which has totally happened in the side yard. In my side yard, I didn't do the 6 inches. I kind of got lazy with it, and I'm having a little bit of a weed problem. I would also suggest when you're laying down the cardboard to add rocks on top to hold it down. It's great if you live somewhere that's kind of windy, but even if you don't have any wind, when your cardboard dries out, we'll be watering it later on. Once it dries out, it has a tendency to curl up, so the rocks will help weigh everything down and kind of help it mold to the ground as it dries. I would suggest working in little sections. It is very easy to lay down the cardboard, and it is not so easy to lay down the mulch. So just do little areas and then put the mulch down, and then do another little area and put the mulch down. And if you have any questions about cardboard, I do have a video on how to prep cardboard. I will post a little link here in the video somewhere and also down in the description, so you can see how to properly prep the cardboard so you aren't putting chemicals and plastics into your yard. So this is what it should look like when you're done laying the cardboard down. I would add more rocks if you have access to them. I would totally use them if I could. I'm going to freeze it right here. I want to show you what the edging should look like. You want to make sure the cardboard is all up against the sidewalk, because if you're going to have a weed problem, it's going to be right here. So be sure it's all up against that sidewalk and lay as many rocks as possible to keep it compressed down. Now, before you put mulch on your cardboard, you want to water it down. This has two purposes. First thing is that it keeps the cardboard in place. Like I said earlier, I do have like a weed problem in my side yard where I did sheet mulching because I didn't do certain steps, and this was one of the steps I didn't do. So water down the cardboard to keep it in place. It'll keep it from shifting. If it shifts, just shift it back. But the issue here is if it shifts far enough, let's say you only have 2 inches of overlap, then the weeds are gonna find a way out, and then you're gonna have to dig up the mulch and like put cardboard back down in that that area. So water it down to do that, but also you want the cardboard to dry molded as close to the ground as possible. If there's any gap between the soil and the cardboard, it's going to let light through, and the weeds, like the reason they pop up is because they see light. So if you stop any light from showing through the cardboard, then you're going to prevent weeds from coming up to the surface. I think at this point I found more rocks or realized that I had rocks to use. So I am putting rocks down in the edge area. This is the most important area to put the rocks, at least in my experience, because that's the biggest issue with weeds. So I want to make sure this particular area stays down in the ground so the weeds can't find any sunlight. And this I need to rewater this because, as you can tell when I was stepping on it, it's kind of folding up. That just tells me that's part of the cardboard is still dry. Alright, so I'm fast forwarding a little bit. I tried filming this, but then my camera kept falling into the water and I didn't want to ruin it. So this is what the cardboard should look like once you completely saturated it. It's completely molded to the ground, except for that little tiny area. And I have rocks pretty much everywhere to hold everything in place. And as you can see, the edging of that cardboard is as close as possible to the sidewalk. I'm going to freeze the frame for a second. I want to talk about this. Anything that you have coming through your cardboard, like any sprinkler lines, irrigation, any drainage pipes, you want to pay special attention to it. And you want to cut the hole as close as possible to whatever's coming through. And then once it's cut through, I would suggest putting rocks all around it to make sure it's held down so that weeds can't kind of weave through, because this would be a problem area if you're going to have one. This is a good angle to show you how the cardboard dries. So this is just in between filming that last little scene and grabbing mulch from my mulch pile. Just in that time frame, the cardboard has started drying out, and as you can tell, it's lifting up a little bit. So this is why using rocks is really important, and this is why kind of consistently watering the cardboard down is pretty important. Now, this next step is just laying down mulch. It's suggested 3 to 4 inches of mulch. Now, it depends on the kind of mulch you have. My mulch is from like a tree company. They just dumped a bunch of tree trimmings on my driveway. And this mulch has a lot of leaves in it, which means part of this mulch is going to break down really fast. So I want to lay it a little bit thick so that I don't have to go in later on and reapply once the leaves break down. And I do want to discuss one safety issue. As I'm laying this mulch down, you can see some dust come off of it, and I'm going to make a little break in this video to talk about that. This is my nice little mulch pile here. I got a company to drop this off for free after they cut a tree locally to me. Now, I did not know about this, but it's actually, mulch can be quite dangerous to your health. And I didn't realize this until I started getting really, really sick and I couldn't figure out why. Now, mulch, essentially what happens in this kind of mulch pile is that it starts to break down, and part of that process, the decomposition process, is that the mold in the mulch that is helping with that process is creating mold spores. And when you come through with your shovel or whatever, you're throwing those spores into the air, essentially into your breathing air, and you could be breathing in those mold spores. Now, it's not only just piles like this that can have that. This can also happen in bags of mulch. So you really do have to be very careful when handling mulch if it's store-bought or something like this where it's dropped off by a company. Now, one of the things you can do to protect yourself is to use a face mask. I will post the one I'm using down below to protect your lungs. Every day after I would work on the yard, I would feel like I had pneumonia and I would feel like I'm dying. You do not feel good. It's a combination of pneumonia and the worst cold you've ever had. So I would definitely just take the precaution, wear a mask. It's not super, cute or anything, but it's gonna protect your lungs. And we're back. I also want to point out, as I'm moving this mulch around, you can kind of see that there is some dust coming from the mulch. So I'd even wear a mask even when it's on the ground already and you're just kind of just moving it around a little bit, because there will be some mold spores that come out of the mulch. But after a few days, it should be safe to walk on your mulch as long as you have sunlight. Sun kills mold spores, so yeah, after a few days, the sun will go ahead and totally kill those off, so it won't be any issue. But again, I'm not a doctor, so if you have any questions or concerns, go ahead and talk to your doctor and ask them. So I've been using this little green cart as my wheelbarrow. This isn't what it's made for, but I really didn't want to purchase a wheelbarrow just for this project. If you want to, go for it, but you don't think you have to purchase special things just to do this. Whatever you have in your home will probably work just fine. Yay, last step. Okay, the very last step is to water down your mulch. The point of doing this is to keep everything in place, but also to make sure the cardboard stays kind of damp. Again, if you let it dry, it'll start rolling up even at this stage. Since we live in a place that has a lot of hot days, we can have, at this time, I think it's like high 90s, low hundreds. We want to make sure that everything kind of stays wet throughout the day, because if not, it gets just so hot that everything starts to roll up. And my main goal here is to keep the weeds from popping up. So I really want to put the extra effort in the beginning of the project so that I don't have weeds popping up, a few months down the line. That's it for today. Feel free to drop a comment down below if you have any questions. Like this video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys.